Okay, we're going to look at how you could create some of the functions for making a animated GIF of a graphic user interface for a mobile device. So we look at some of the basic principles and how we could go about making them. And now if we're in Photoshop, so if you go to the File menu, and I'll just go New. So once I'm there, I'll just go from the presets and I'll bring up Mobile App. And once I'm there, I'll just bring out a smaller iPhone for just getting the size. Okay, so we got that 640 by 960. Now, once we've got that, we're going to just look at just doing it, a basic layout and seeing how we could have some functions on there to show how it would work. So what we'll do is I'll just press Command A or Control A on a PC, and I'm just going to fill in the background. So I'll just give it another color, and in this case I'm going to go for a red color. I've got that, and I click OK, and I fill it in red. Then I go to Command D on an Apple or Control D to get rid of the selection. So I've just made a red background, and I'm going to put some shapes on here. So I'll go to the tools and I'll get the rectangle shape, and I will just drag out a shape. Now you can get them all the right sizes and lined up, but this is just based on functionality. Now I'll just change the color of the shape. I've made it yellow. I can change it up here on the options, or I could double click here to bring up the picker and change it down here from the layers icon here. Now once I've done that, I'm going to name it. So the layer over here, I'm going to call this top left. Now it's important when you're doing a graphic user interface, even if it's something that's going to be static, that's going to be used in an actual app for development, or you're just going to make a static mock-up or even an animated mock-up, you'll need to make sure you identify all your layers and they're clear and they're grouped in other folders or layer groups. Now I've named this. Now all I'll do is I'll press Command J, and that'll duplicate that layer, or Control J if you're using a PC. And what I will do now is I will just rename that, and I'm going to call that top right. So I call it top right. Now once I've got it top right, I will just get the move tool and I'll just move it over here. Once I've got that, and I put it here. Now next thing I'll do is again I'll now duplicate that by just going Command J or Control A, and then once I've done that, I'll just move this down, place it here. Here's the object, and this is going to be bottom right. I'll just make sure I put a dash on here. I'll just make sure my naming is consistent, which is important. I'm using just camel case here, not dashes. Okay, so I've done a bottom right, and once I've done that, I'll select that layer, and then again Control J or Command J if you're on an Apple. Right, now once I've done that, I will then move that across here. Once I've done that, and I'm going to change that over and change its name, and this is going to be bottom left. So I've identified all those elements. Now in the layers, I've got 4 layers, and I'll shift click them and go to the layer options up at the top, and I'm going to say new group from layers. Now I'm going to just call these boxes. Whatever you call them is up to you, buttons or anything like that. You have to name them that makes sense to you. So I've named them, and now these are all in a folder here. I'm going to duplicate this folder. I've got it selected, the group, and again Command J on an Apple or Control J on a PC. Once I've got that, I'm going to call the bottom one here, the boxes, I'm going to rename them, and I'm going to call these roll overs. You can call them different things, highlights or anything you want. So I'll call them rollovers. And the top one, I'll just delete that back where it says copy, so it just says boxes. And once I've got that, on the rollovers, I'm going to just change all their colors. So I'll change them to a blue color. I'm going to double click here. I'm going to select blue, and I'll just do that, and then double click this one. Again, I'll select the blue, and do that, and double click again, and select the blue, click that, and double click on the last layer there, and click on here, and click OK. Right, now if I close that up and I turn off my boxes, I've just got 4 duplicate layers. Right. Now, what will happen is when the user interacts, these things are going to go off or on as the mouse or someone's touching it on a touch device moves their finger across them. Okay, so we've got that set up. Now the next thing I'll do is make a cursor. So how I'm going to do that, I'm going to go to the shapes, keep my finger on the mouse, I'm going to go to the ellipse, and I'm going to hold down the shift key, and I'm just going to drag out and drag. This is going to represent what the user's doing. Now I'll just change that, and I'll just make it black for once of a color, and once that's done, I'll get the move tool. So that's all set up, and what I will do here is just call it pointer. Again, you need to decide what you're going to call it. Some people have tap, or they have different variants of what the tap is going to look like. Now that's all set up. Now what I need to do is have the mouse going, or the user interacting, doing a drag from here and going down to the bottom right. So we'll get going on that to make our animated GIF. Now I need to go to the window menu, and I need to go down to the timeline. Now once I've got the timeline, you can edit video in here, so it does give you 2 different options. So if we click on the little icon of the upside down triangle, it gives us create video timeline, create frame animation. Now what I will do is once I've selected that, I click there and it will give me 1 frame. That's a default frame, it's up there, it's ready to go. Now what I don't want is this representation of the user's interaction appearing here. Now to just see what I'm doing, I'll click on my layers and just drag it over here so you can see what's happening. Now what I'll do is just turn it off, and I'm going to open up my boxes group. Now once I've done that, if you go down, you see down here it says 0 seconds. So we need to have it to pause for a little bit. So I'm going to have it to pause for, say, 1 second. Now we'll stay there for 1 second before moving on. Now I need to have my next frame in here. So I go down and it's got duplicate frame, and that will duplicate that frame. Now this frame needs to have the pointer on. And because the pointer's over this yellow square, will activate some sort of rollover or interaction or behavior. So I need to turn off the top right. Got it right there. Okay, so once I've got that, I want to now have my interaction going down here to the bottom right. Okay, I go down to the bottom and duplicate again. Now what I'll do before I move on, I'll change these and just make these 0.1 of a second and 0.1 of a second. I can change them later, but you definitely don't want to have them on 1 second because that's too long. So I duplicated that. Now I'm on the 3rd frame. Now in the 3rd frame, I need to now drag out my representation of the interaction for the user. I drag it down, and you'll see down the bottom it will probably show the 2. That's the frame 2. And this is frame 3. Now because it's on here, I need to have a rollover on that, so I'm going to turn off the bottom right and turn back on the top left. Now what's happening now, here's our 1st frame, 2nd frame and 3rd frame. Now we need to have it smoothly running from the 2nd frame to the 3rd frame. So I click on my 2nd frame in the timeline, and then I shift click the 3rd frame. Now once I've got that, I'm going to put a tween on. So I click on the tween button. Now the default is 5. The more you have in, the more smoothly it runs, but the bigger the animation becomes in file size. So I'll just leave it on the default, and all I want to do is have its position. I don't want to change any opacity or anything like that. I can create fades. Now once I've done that, I will just then click OK. Now down the bottom, it's now added all those frames for me. If I go through there, it shows the movement across and when it gets there, the blue appears to sort of show like a rollover. Now if I just rewind that and play it, it does that. Okay, so once that's done, I may want to have it moving to here, so I'll have it moving to the bottom left. So again, I will get it to pause here, and I'll get it to pause for 1 second. Now then I will duplicate that, so I've duplicated it down there. I'll change that and make it 0.1 of a second. Now this time, I'm on that last frame there. You can see I'm going to move over the interaction device here, and then I'm going to switch around my yellow boxes so it shows a rollover on here. So just switch on and off those ones to show that. Now again, the same thing will happen. I need to shift click my frames, which is 8 and 9, and then I need to put in another tween. So I go down, put the tween button. I'm going to go for 5, and again it's remembered it's just position, it's movement, and I click OK to that. Now what I've got is, if I go through here, I've got all these moving across. Now if you notice, all these have come up and it's duplicated it from 1 second. So I now need to shift click these all the way along. I'll leave number 14 the last one, and all I need to do is change just one of them to 0.1 of a second, and it'll change all the ones that I've selected. So if I look at it now, it's here, individual frames, it's moving across, and it's moving there. Okay, so if I rewind and I play that, it'll come across, pause, move across, and do that. And then finally, what I'm going to do is have it going back to where it was before, or I'll go to the top right. So what I need to do is down the bottom, I will duplicate again. And once I've duplicated, I will go down and leave the one before at 1 second. So there's a bit of a pause on there. Then what I will need to do is go back to my last frame, which is frame 15. And then I will just drag up the representation of the interaction up to the top right. Once I've got it there, I'm going to switch over the boxes. Then I'll go back and shift click 14 and 15. And then put a tween on it, and then click OK. And then what we've got here, it should be starting to move across here. I'm doing that. Okay, so I make sure these are not all on. So 15 to 19, I'm going to change those and have it to 0.1 of a second because there were 2 long delays. But then we've got these stop points where we've got them at 1 second, and I'm going to have the 1 second right at the end. Now what I need to do is where it says once down the bottom of the timeline, I change that and say forever, and that will just loop it. Now I'll have it rewind, and now I'll just play and see what the interaction is. Okay, so it's just moving across here and up, and then it'll loop around and start all over again. Okay. So that's how you can make a representation of how a user would interact with an application if you're doing a sort of a promotional aspect on your website. So you want to show how a user can interact with your app and show the functionality of your app. Now once you've done that, what I can do is I can go to the file menu. I go down to save for web. Now once I'm in save for web, I'll just save it as a GIF. So I can go up and save it for, I'll just save it as a 32 GIF up at the top with no div. A div that will put sort of a little mark on it there. It's picked out the colors that it has in there. It says, 32 colors. You can take it up and make it more if you wanted to. The less colors you have in there, the smaller the file size and probably the faster it animates. But the less colors you have in, the more crude the image might be. So if you are looking for a full high fidelity representation of an app, you're probably going to go for 256 colors. I don't have a lot of colors in this one, so I'm just going to leave it on 32. Now once I've done that, you can preview it in the browser, and here you can set up a number of browsers you can test it in, and I will just press preview, and it'll just give a preview. Now you might find it works faster in the browser, and you might want to go back once you've seen the preview and change it and slow it down if you wish. It's up to you. But I've sort of done that. I previewed it, and now I'm going to click on save. I'm going to call this interface. It's going to save it as a GIF. I'll just save it on my desktop and save it there. And now I'll just close that down. Here's my image, and all I need to do now is I will just open up Chrome or any other browser. I'll drag it and drop it here, and there you go, it works. So you can just put that on your website or anywhere else, and it will just run through showing how your application would work if a user was interacting with it.